Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another channel premiere for you from the brand new Swiss-made brand Seaholm. Now, there are some things that I think are very special about this brand, where they really go about things very differently than a lot of the micro brands that are out there today. And I think a lot of the things that they do are a lot better than the micro brands that we see out there today. Of course, whenever you're starting a new brand, some of your designs are going to be, they're going to be a lot of times less inspired. They're going to be something that might be considered a little bit safe. And I think some people might see this watch right now and think that it is a bit of a safe, expectable design that you would think of when if you were to create a dive watch. But I think that's actually part of the formula here in this case. And I've just been really impressed, and I just invite you guys to take a look at this piece and definitely kind of hear me out with an open mind, and just to kind of get an idea of what's actually behind this brand and what drives them, because I think that's actually the most interesting part about this watch is the actual Seaholm brand. Now, Seaholm, one of the things that they have is their AWS, which basically stands for anti-magnetism, water resistance, and shock resistance. One of the really great things about Seaholm is that they actually they test our watches so rigorously that they actually exceed the ISO standards by quite a bit. So basically, for shock resistance, these are actually 3 times more shock resistant than the ISO standards require them to be labeled as shock resistant. They're actually 7 times more anti-magnetic than is required for them to be listed as anti-magnetic. And then, of course, from a water resistant perspective, they actually are tested to 125% of that 200 meter water resistant level. So these are just so overbuilt, and I think there's a lot of brands out there, especially in the micro brand community, that have been milking the cow when it comes to overbuilt divers. Now, the thing here is it's not just an overbuilt look by using a chunkier bracelet or a thicker bezel grip. This is actually an overbuilt watch, and it's been tested, and it's not just so it can look and maybe feel a little bit substantial on the wrist. It actually has been tested to stand up and really be an extremely capable watch. And I think that's one of the nice approaches that Seaholm's really made, is that's their take on luxury. You have the luxury of the capabilities of the watch, and not just the luxury of a couple of different trick ways to polish or finish a case or a dial, or a way to make something tactile feel a little bit more expensive. Really, the expense in this watch is just the capabilities of it, and this watch, it's really impressed me thus far. And as far as the design goes, one of the nice things about Seaholm is they actually do pair with a Red Dot award-winning designer, the White brand design in Switzerland. So basically, if you guys know about Red Dot, they're huge as far as design goes. If you win one of those awards, that means that you have some really clean and nice aesthetics that kind of everybody can appreciate, even outside of the particular field of study. Just to give you an idea of what types of watches the White brand have actually designed. They actually did design the Victorinox Inox. Now, and they've actually designed quite a few different watches, but I thought that was one that's pretty out of all the crazy watches they've designed. They've even done some stuff, really classic stuff, for like Tag Heuer, the Heuer Carrera, like the throwback one. So they've done a real range of different designs, and they've all been very, very popular. But I thought the Inox, because that's just something that is a really cool looking and very iconic watch. And I think what they try to do here is create something that's it's inspired by the icons, and I think it kind of is an icon in itself, in its execution, although maybe in its form function, it's something that is not the most exciting or special thing. So with that said, let's go ahead and get a closer look at this. Okay. So as you can see here, this watch, I've just been very impressed with it, and some of the things that caught my eye originally about this piece is the actual finishing there on the dial with that really nice directional brush finish there. It's something you don't see all the time, and when you do, normally it's on something a little bit more high end or just limited or special. So really nicely done there. Really impressed. So this model is actually called the Offshore Diver, and it does come on a bracelet plus a NATO, which we'll go ahead and cover later on in the review. Also, it does come with a 3-year transferable warranty and also a complimentary 5-year service, which is definitely kind of going above and beyond what you would expect, especially from an upstart brand. So they really believe in the product that they're putting out there, and they're willing to support the product, even if you're not the original purchaser, which I think is pretty bold on their part. Now, as far as the pricing goes, I mean, there might be other promotions or anything like that, but as it stands right now, this particular watch goes for $19.95 US, and it does have complimentary standard overnight shipping, which is really nice. I know that sounds a bit expensive, especially for a new brand, but I think that there's a lot that goes into this, and I think if you're looking for this particular type of watch, it really, you know, it could be what you're looking for. So I think there's a very particular buyer out there, a very niche group of people, and this could be exactly the watch that kind of sings to them. So at that price, it's definitely not something I'm going to just recommend everybody go out and grab. But I think that if you like this watch, it's definitely worth it. If you like the way it looks, I can guarantee you're going to like the way that it feels, because the finishing is really, really nice. And there's just, I mean, it's by no means a perfect watch. I don't think any watches are. I mean, you know, short of maybe the Rolex Explorer. And that would only became perfect after they revamped it and tweaked it a little bit by making, you know, the arms longer and looming some of the numerals. So with that said, you know, I do think that this is a really fine piece, and I'm going to explain a little bit more on kind of why I think that. Now, as far as the diameter and the dims and everything like that goes, of course it did flash across the screen earlier, but just in case you don't remember, it's 41 millimeter diameter. Definitely wears that way. It has an 8.11 millimeter height. It is 50 millimeters lug to lug. It's of course made out of 316L stainless steel. It is brushed all around. It does have a 120 click. Unidirectional bezel. It's just rock solid. My gosh. The grip, even through these gloves, it's just fantastic. It does have a really, really great finish there on that aluminum insert. It has that nice brush finish to it, which of course is going to wear really well. And then the crown is screw down, and it's a really nice big crown. Very nice and grippy, and for those of you who kind of really are into the tactile feeling of operating a mechanical watch, I will tell you that this crown is butter. I mean, it's just about absolutely fantastic screwing this back in. This is probably one of the best crown actions I've ever had. And I don't mean winding the movement. I mean, you know, those are all going to kind of vary, and it's really depend on the movement. But the actual action of this crown winding, which you know, I never really do on these reviews. One, because I'm wearing gloves, but two, because there's never been one that really stood out to me so much. But this action that's on here, when you push that in and screw it down, ooh, even with the gloves on, oh man, that just goes down. So the threading in there, just everything aligns. You're not fighting anything. There's no resistance. It's just butter, pure butter. So wow, big props to Seaholm on that, because that execution is just fantastic. Now, as far as the movement goes that's inside, it's pretty standard. It's Sellita SW200-1, so it does have the date there, and it does have a custom date wheel that actually aligns the date to be parallel, which is nice, and it's something you don't always see. I've seen this, of course, on my Zinn 556, and I've seen it on Bell & Ross watches normally, and I think both of those brands are definitely people who there is a lot of marking up considering the type of watch that they produce. So I think it's definitely fitting of a watch kind of in this price range for it to have some of those little special quirks and tweaks that that really just take it to another level. And I really do appreciate that date. It's just so unobtrusive there. Of course, everything's blacked out. It's nice and small, but then at the same time, it is nice and level and parallel with all of the font and text. So it's really just great, and I do like that touch there. Now the case back is solid and engraved. Very simple. I'm not sure if this is going to change, you know, down the line or anything like that, but I think, you know, it pretty much tells the story that this is a tool watch. It's not about trying to be fancy or show anything off. It's really the way this watch shows off is that, you know, after you drop it, you know, from 10 feet, it's still running, it's still working great, or, you know, it's you're taking it into a place where you'd normally be a little bit more worried about your mechanical watch as far as magnetism goes, and you're just walking with complete ease and carefreeness there. That's really where it's going to impress. So really cool. As far as the water resistance goes, as you guys can see, it is 200 meters water resistant. It does have 21 millimeter lugs, which is a little bit specific, which isn't great. I mean, 20 or 22 are normally kind of what people prefer, but the nice thing about 21 millimeter lugs is chances are you'll be okay with a 22 or a 20. So if you have a 20 millimeter, you know, NATO strap or something like that, or a leather or rubber strap, it'll fit in there just fine at 20 millimeters or 22, depending on if you want there to be maybe a little bit of room there, or just have it smushed a little bit in between the lugs. So for me, that's definitely not an ideal point, but you know, it's a choice made to really keep these proportions really exact, which is definitely a huge part of a dive watch when it comes to that legibility and kind of fitting that iconic, you know, silhouette is a big part of that, is of course, you know, those proportions, and then that's kind of part of it when you decide to have a case that's 41 millimeters. So the links, everything's solid, as you can see. The nice thing is we do have the nice integrated end links there, super nice, solid, and then it comes down to these, you know, 3-link oyster style. They are longer links, I will say. And they do have a bit of a curve to them, so they do wrap around the wrist really nicely, and do offer, they kind of add a little bit of a different look to it versus something that would be like a more standard kind of flat oyster style. So there's definitely a little bit more design put into these. You know, of course, everything is screw in, you know, like you would expect. Then we have, you know, solid folding mechanism on this flip lock clasp there, a couple of micro adjusts, and also a stamped little diver's extension there, which is a nice touch. So really cool. I mean, nothing to write home about as far as, you know, like the technology or the design, you know, in that, from that standpoint. But I think really the nice thing that you're gonna get is really the overall kind of everything into one. You know, it's really more than the sum of its parts. It's just giving you something that, I mean, to me, I don't know, it's just, it just has a certain quality to it, and, you know, especially after doing a little bit of research on just the level of testing that this goes through, it's really cool to think of it as you know, just kind of an extreme beater watch, because this thing is definitely ready, you know, to get thrown in a bag and go on a vacation and go on an adventure. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist. Okay, as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears really well. I think because of the kind of slimmer outer bezel there, it definitely is going to appear a bit bigger, especially with the large font type and everything. Let me get a little bit of that dust off the sapphire box dome crystal. Really nice. BGW9 loom, everything fits really great. And, you know, I think it wears like you'd expect a 41 millimeter diver to wear. So with this time, I thought I would actually share the packaging that the Seaholm comes in, and it's really cool. So this is all metal, and it's all brushed and finished nicely. And then you actually open up the top here, which is pretty nice, and you will find a compass, which I thought that was really cool and a really nice touch. As you can see, it works. I'm kind of moving it around and it's still finding its way there. So really awesome. I thought that was a really great touch. And then another nice touch is the presentation that this kind of comes in. Let me get that balance there. So it comes in a little leather roll, and of course the watch would be in here. And then you have your tool for doing strap changes and whatnot. And then you have this really, really nice NATO. Oh, of course, branded Seaholm. If we pull this guy out there, as you can see. So really, really cool. Very, you know, I'd say a complete package. And then you can see that this is extremely nicely woven. Real soft, super soft. I mean, if you guys can see that, that thing is just super great choice as far as the nylon goes. And then when you look at the hardware, also very nice. I mean, this buckle is probably one of the nicer NATO buckles I've ever experienced. And if you guys are fans of the channel, you know that I've done like premium NATO shootouts and whatnot. This thing is nice. So not only in the finish, but the shape and everything is just, this thing is really nicely done. And then it has the nice sign there. It also signed here, really cool. So yeah, I thought that was kind of worth mentioning. I thought it was really, really nice, and really a cool kind of add to the value that you're gonna get here. And then of course you do have the transferable warranty and whatnot. So I mean, again, I don't normally review watches that are kind of in this price range. Normally they're a little bit below, you know, maybe apart from my Brellum Dual Box, which is a bit more expensive, understandably so, though. It's being a COSC chronograph. But this piece right here, I mean, it's just, they could have not done this, right? And I think there's plenty of brands that will charge you more money for less. And, you know, a watch that's less capable, that has less of, you know, real strong ethos and, you know, a real theme to it. And I really like their take on everything, and just that this is an outdoor adventure watch, and it's something you're going to take with you, and you're going to have a good time with, and it's going to be able to support you, and it's going to work, you know. It's going to go to work with you, and it's going to go to work for you. So I think that's just really cool. So let's go ahead and get this. Let's do some low light transition loom shots. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hit the lights. Okay, so as you can see, super nice BGW9 loom there. Really, really glowing, pumping away. As you'd expect, just really, really clean execution. Nice high definition differences there. It doesn't look splotchy or vague or anything like that. Just really, really nicely done. And it hits all the marks from that standpoint. So with that said, let's go ahead and get some low light transition here. So one of the nice things about kind of getting an idea of that low light transition is that, you know, although my hot studio lights do a very good job of simulating kind of that outdoor, you know, broad daylight lighting, it actually does wash out a lot of the finer finishing kind of points that you notice when you're looking at a watch in some lower light. So you can see the uniformity in that brushing there, which is very, very nice. And it does give you a nice idea of the play of color in that blue and the brushing in the bezel. As you can see, the way the light just kind of dances right off that brushing. Really finely done there. Nice machining all around. And then you do have that great, cool ice blue BGW9 tone. Really nicely done. So you do get a really nice idea of, you know, coming in and out of a vehicle, going in and out of a building, you know, really how this watch is going to look and kind of in those other situations. So I think it looks great. I think that color palette with that that nice faded blue really ties in and gives it a bit of that more vintage look, which I think definitely can be appreciated in kind of today's trends. So, you know, I really, when I first got this piece, I was really interested kind of to see what the whole deal was about, because the pricing I thought was pretty aggressive. But as far as the watch itself, I thought it looked great. It has that overbuilt look, and again, that's something that I enjoy. You know, it's something from something like, let's say, a Helson Shark Diver, right? If you've ever had one, you know those are really great tool watches. But the thing is, the difference here is the Helson Shark Diver is really just playing that aesthetic. It has the look, it has the feel, but it hasn't been tested, right? It hasn't been put to the test. It doesn't have that backup. And, you know, a lot of the times, you know, you kind of, you know, you have a good one, you have a bad one, whatever. It's going to be a different story. Here, it's kind of like with timing with mechanical watches, right? There's a difference between something that's COSC, right? And then there's the difference between when you just kind of get lucky. When you get a watch that's unregulated and it's within 3 seconds, that's great, right? But then you get a watch that's regulated and you know in every position, every which way, it's going to be within, you know, -4 or +6 a day. I mean, that's outstanding, right? Because it's guaranteed. There's a test there. There's something that's been built on. There's more to it, kind of behind the scenes. It's not just a look. It's not just, you know, a pretty face. And I think that's what's most interesting about the Seaholm brand and this particular model in the Offshore, is that, you know, there's just more to it, right? It's one thing to say this is a tough watch and build a watch that looks tough, feels tough, has enough heft on the wrist to make you believe that it's tough. But they actually put some testing to it. And it's not to say that no other watch can, you know, can do the same things. But I think what it does say is it says a lot about this company, and that they believe in their product. They believe in that mission statement and what they're trying to provide. So, you know, on the wrist, of course, it really wears very substantially, and it wears like you would expect a 41 millimeter diver to wear. It does have some pretty cool variants there. There's a black dial, black bezel. There's a gray dial, gray bezel. And then there's this model, of course, the black dial with the blue bezel. And then I think one or two of those options actually do have C3 Superluminova versus this one's with the BGW9, which I think is also a great choice. So, you know, if you are not huge into the blue lume, you can always get the green lume model as well. Some comparable models. I'd say this really is kind of like a Tudor Black Bay meets Helson Shark Diver mashup. You know, it's something that it has those very iconic lines and the color palette even, but there's just a real more, you know, there's a focus on the toughness and the tooliness, and you know, I think that also ties into the designers who helped kind of shape and mold this watch. In that, you know, they're the same designers that made the Inox for Victorinox. So this is a tough piece, and, you know, and with maybe you strip away all that other stuff and you think, oh, this is just like another vintage inspired diver. But I think you can't really deny those other things, because not only are they part of, you know, just some story or, you know, some pictograms that you see through marketing, they've actually been tested and tested pretty heavily. You know, for the last 3 years, they've really refined everything. So I'm impressed by that, and I'm impressed by this watch. And I think I went into this kind of thinking that, you know, it was a kind of a mystery, and I was hoping that it would kind of live up to kind of what I was thinking. But I think that it definitely did, and exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways, just because of some of those just behind the scenes, those little things, you know, that some of the way things feel, the tactile feel on everything is just so dialed in. The fit and finish, very dialed in. Now, it doesn't have like a bunch of trick chamfers or anything like that to make it, to highlight a lot of it, the finishing prowess that they have. Really, you notice the good finishing is more related to the fit, you know, because everything just fits so nicely and tightly together. But judging by everything else, the way this thing moves and the way it feels in hand and on wrist, I'm sure whoever makes this case and bracelet are more than capable of putting a fine bevel on something. You know, just for this model, that really wasn't their thing. So with that said, let me know what you guys think. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.